Good day, Chief here for Chief Tells Tales. Today I'm going to talk about mines. I recently watched the Armie Hammer movie called Mine. Came out on about a good 10 years ago. It's a good psychological thriller. Some people find it stupid, but the mental anguish he goes through after he thinks he steps on a mine and then being told, oh, by the way, you have to stay put in place for 57 hours. Yeah. The closest I came to mines is, I would say, a couple times in my lifetime. First would be the Gulf War. My company commander, every time we went from one location to another location, there would be a perfectly good road, looks like it was traveled on, didn't see any holes in it, but he would drive alongside of the road, so we'd be going up and down these minor sand dunes, and the perfectly good road's right there. If I was the bad guys, they may be suspicious of the road, let's put some mines to the side. As far as I know, I was never in any minefields, but that was the one thing that did scare me relating to my last week's video. I was given a flak vest that was too small. I couldn't even put it in couldn't even meet it. And that's all they had. So I sat on it because I was the driver of the Humvee, and my squad leader kept insisting that I wear it. And I'm like, nope, I'm protecting the bottom side of me in case I do drive over something. My legs are trash. I'll probably get some here, but hopefully the vest will absorb anything that's going to go up my rear end and into my body. Had a lieutenant and our platoon sergeant of my platoon, and of course our platoon leader, the lieutenant. They were in a Humvee one day, and they heard pop, I think I've already told this story, but I'm going to tell it again. And they popped 2 tires over what we consider anti-personnel mines, because if they were real mines, the Humvee and them would have not done the second pop. So they heard pop, pop, didn't realize what was going on, stopped, got out of their vehicle, walked around, they said, and then realized that, 2 of the tires, we must, and then I don't know if they saw minor holes behind them or what, so they hopped back inside the vehicle. Rather than backtracking the way they came, no, they did a wide circle, they told us. And they told this story in front of the platoon, and this was before we crossed the berm. This is before we went to war. And you could look at all the boys' faces. We were just like, yeah, there's that look we get when someone tells something really stupid. And we were just like, oh my God, they got out of the vehicle. Oh my God, they walked around. Oh my God. Rather than going over the tracks, they did a wide. So they got the tires replaced, and yeah. But as far as I know, I never drove through any minefield. Well, we did drive through one minefield when we went across the berm, and they already had the engineer tape. So that was probably the closest I got to any mines that I know of. Even though I did my couple recons, as I talked about them last week. And then my next incident with mines is I went to Bosnia-Herzegovina, and we went to Fort Benning to get training in order to get deployed, because I got deployment request, and I went on it. My command was telling me to keep rejecting it, and I'm like, no, I want to go. And but we had to go to Fort Benning for training. I think that was 2 weeks of training, or at least a good 10 days. I can't remember which. And we had a very intense class, probably inside the classroom, I would say 2 hours minimum, if not more. They showed a couple films, I think. They had examples of mines. They had pictures of the mines in Mostly it would be Soviet stuff, because Yugoslavia, before it got broken up into all those parts, was a communist country, and Tito was friends with Stalin after World War II, so therefore got a lot of Soviet equipment. Even though the Soviet Union was no more, but their mines were still all over there. Where I got stationed there was a couple mines marked on our location. Why EOD never came and got them, I don't know. Don't know why they weren't gone before I got there, because I was there 6 months, and I don't know how long this site was open. So it's like all this time, and they're still leaving these live mines. But our entire site, excuse me, was surrounded by minefields, especially on the down the mountain. And one of our contractors was actually born there, but he's now a U.S. citizen. And then he would walk down the mountain to go shopping, and I think he had some relatives in town, Sarajevo. And he said, nope, nobody comes with me. He says, I know where the mines are. I'm not going to watch you. I'm going to watch me. And nobody really volunteered to go with him in the first place. So he would go down. And during the winter time, the ground freezes, and that puts a lot of pressure. So occasionally we would hear mine explosions. We had wild horses that were on the outside of our perimeter. Occasionally one of them would set one off. We had a news blurb one day. A shepherd was on our mountain, and one of his sheep set one off, and he got injured. So I was kind of humorous in a way, you know. Minefield, yeah, let me go graze my sheep on the hillside, and bam, and then he gets injured since his sheep sets off a mine. I did go for a recon, because we were down below us was the former observatory of Sarajevo, and it was on a flat hill halfway down the mountainside, had a road to it. Went out with the sergeant, we walked the road, and of course, nature being what it does, it overgrew everything, so it was real tall weeds and bushes on the road. So I said, I was in the lead, I said, follow me at a distance, please. And we kind of stayed on the road, didn't lose it. We got on site, and it was like well kept. I don't know if it was because a lot of the vegetation was uprooted, but it looked like it was upkept, and a lot of dead stuff, and so we could see. And the entire observatory was surrounded by trenches, and then there was slope wherever the trenches were. And so I told the sergeant with me, I said, do not go on the other side of the trench if you're going to take any pictures. I didn't have a camera, so I didn't take any pictures. Wish I did. And the observatory was two different buildings. I guess one was like an office or whatever. They were both totally destroyed, but somewhat intact. So we went inside the observatory itself, and the second floor was wooden at one time. That was all gone, so we went up the stairs, and you had to hug the wall, because you got up to where the floor should be, then you had to hug around the curve to go further back up. So we went all the way up, looked out, got on top of the roof, looked all around, and you could see all the trenches, and you could see down into Sarajevo. So we got done with that, and we went in the other building, and it had a circular stairwell that was intact. So we get all the way up there, we look around, and blah, blah, blah. You know, okay, seen it, been there, done that, no t-shirts for sale. So we left, we get all the way back, and then that civilian contractor was like, hey, did you guys see the blood stain? Well, blood turns brown after a certain amount of time. And we're like, where? He says, along the circular stairwell. I said, yeah, we might have. He says, yeah, because he says some guy got shot and his brains and blood got splattered against the wall, and you can see the spray. He said, well, the sergeant looks at me and he says, let's go. I want to go see it. And I'm like, nope, we're not going. I said, I risked my life once. Not going again. Not pushing my luck. Because that could have been, that easily could have been the time that I find a mine. So that's me in Minefields. And that's the one thing I am scared of. Because typical mine will take you out or take your legs. The Bouncing Betty was meant to hit you in the waistline so you can bleed very painfully. It's amazing sometimes what we come up with, how to injure people. Because you want to injure your enemy, because that way it takes more enemy soldiers to take care of him, to put him someplace safe. Well, that's it for this week. Ties in a little bit to what I said last week. So, Chief out. Freedom's not free. You know what to do with the veteran. Thank you very much.